Bless you, sir. My. My colleagues across the aisle are going to find themselves in a bind this year because we're going to investigate. We're going to investigate what exactly did happen leading up to January the 6th. You'd have had to be living under a rock in America to not know that there was potential for violence, riot, and mob behavior on January the 6th. Anybody with an ounce of common sense and any kind of connection to the street knew that that was a potential. The United States Capitol Police received intelligence from numerous law enforcement and intelligence services which clearly indicated a likelihood of violence on January 6th, and they failed to adequately prepare. Let's look at why. Mayor Browser. My goodness. December 31st, she had one tone when she requested the cooperation of the D.C. National Guard. And let me clarify, the commanding general of the D.C. National Guard is subordinate solely to the President. The authority to activate the D.C. National Guard has been delegated by the President to the Secretary of Defense and further delegated to the Secretary of the Army. There's a chain of command. It begins with a request from the mayor. The mayor made that request on December 31st. The President authorized it on January the 3rd, but on January the 5th, Mayor Browse of D.C., who's deeply connected with my Democratic colleagues here in this body, she had a change of heart, sent out a letter. So we don't want any National Guardsmen here. I got National Guardsmen just for traffic control, wearing safety vests, unarmed, working traffic control and crowd control here and there in the city. Certainly not pre-deployed to react and respond quickly to the kind of thing that everybody knew was a potential to happen on January the 6th. So what happened? Were there communications between my colleagues in the Democratic Party and their friend, the mayor of D.C., to have that change of heart the day before January the 6th? We're going to find out. I promise you. Director Wray, will you explain to my colleagues what, in law enforcement, what a show of force deterrence is, how meaningful it is, and how effective it is as we deal with potential for violence, mob behavior, rioting, violent protest, when things can get out of hand, and we know it because of our intel. We have a show of force. Would you explain that in generality, sir? I realize you cannot discuss a case. Share with America briefly how effective the show of force is.
Well, Congressman, with the caveat up front that the FBI, of course, doesn't do crowd control.
Right, but you're my thin blue line brother on this panel because the chief couldn't come. For some reason, the chief we invited is not here. So you're the man on the panel with law enforcement experience. Just share with my colleagues in America just how effective show of force is as a deterrent if you're facing potential violence. Do you agree with that assessment or not, good sir?
My understanding is that a visible show of strength and security is a very, very significant factor.
A very significant factor. I concur. Why do you think, America, why do you think that show of force was canceled the day before January the 6th? I promise you we're going to find out. We will know exactly what happened. And some in this body are not going to like it because there was plenty of intel out there across the country. Many field agents had turned in reports at the federal level. Local law enforcement, the boots on the ground knew that there was potential for violence in a mob born of protest. In a nation that had been locked out of its capital for a year, there was potential. It needed to be controlled. Show of force is a peaceful deterrent. Who could possibly benefit? Let the world ask that question. Who could possibly benefit from the removal of a show of force deterrence on the eve of January the 6th? I'll leave America with that cliffhanger. Madam Chair, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, is now recognized. You have to unmute, Mr. Davis. We can't hear you.
What about now?
Now we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of the witnesses who've been with us all afternoon. In the joint bipartisan report released by the Senate last week, the committee found that, and I quote, according to DOD, the Department of Justice was designated as the lead federal agency in charge of security preparations and response on January 6th. However, when he testified before our committee, former acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen seemed to dispute that the Justice Department had been tapped as the lead federal agency. Lieutenant General Pyatt, was it your understanding prior to January 6th that the Department of Justice had been designated as the lead federal agency?
Congressman, it is. We had asked for a lead federal agency. I'm not sure exactly when it was designated, but we did not have an integrated security plan.
Thank you. General Flynn, same question for you.
Congressman, my understanding is exactly as General Pyatt outlined.
Thank you. According to documents obtained by our committee, the Army initially recommended against supporting Mayor Bowser's request for National Guard support prior to January 6th, in part because the lead federal agency had not been designated at the time. That recommendation changed once DOJ was designated as the lead agency. Lieutenant General Pyatt, could you briefly explain the importance of designating a lead federal agency for large-scale events like January 6th?
Yes, Congressman. That was a recommendation made to the Acting Secretary of Defense by Secretary McCarthy that we have a lead federal agency, that federal agencies exhaust all their assets before we support with military support. We supported that recommendation, and that was the way he was able to approve Mayor Bowser's request for National Guard forces.
Why did DOD then resist granting Mayor Bowser's request until a lead agency had been identified?
We recommended that for a better security plan to have a lead federal agency and an integrated security plan, so we would have unity of command and unity of effort, so that as anything went unaccording to plan, and events normally do, that lead federal agency would have the authorities required for requesting additional support.
Thank you. Unfortunately, as indicated by Mr. Rosen's testimony before our committee last month, DOJ was either unaware of or resisted its lead agency role. According to the Joint Senate report, Army Chief of Staff General McConville noted, and I'm quoting, DOJ did not conduct any interagency rehearsals or have an integrated security plan, as DOJ did during the summer 2020 protests when it had not been designated as the lead federal agency. According to the Senate report, General McConville, and I quote, stressed the importance of integrated security plans and acknowledged that had there been one on January 6th, DOD's response time would have been quicker. General Flynn, had DOJ played a more proactive role in coordinating the federal security preparations prior to January 6th, do you think the federal response would have been quicker?
Congressman, I can't answer for the Department of Justice. However, what I would say is that that integrated security plan, pre-federalized soldiers and airmen, a rehearsal and an integrated security plan would have assisted us when the crisis rapidly escalated and the violence went in a direction that was unforecasted.
Thank you very much. Well, the documents released by the committee offer one reason senior leadership at the Department of Justice was distracted in the days leading up to January 6th. They seem to be in full-blown crisis mode, trying to ward off a desperate president from pressuring them to take action to stop the vote. And while they may have succeeded in doing so at DOJ, the results that followed on January 6th were deadly. And Madam Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.